Welcome to my channel. I'm Tijani-Abagaro, a solution architect. On the previous video, I made an introduction on what I will do on this channel. Please look at them so that you will have a full image on what I will do on AWS VPC creation and the configuration. In this particular video, I will demonstrate AWS VPC graphical design. All right, let us go to the diagram. So this is the chart on which we will going to design VPC, Virtual Private Cloud. All right, let us start with AWS Cloud. AWS Cloud is Amazon Cloud Platform. It is Amazon Cloud Platform. We are designing VPC in Amazon platform. All right. Stretch it to this way. Then let us go to the particular region. Stretch to here, and then to launch, to configure VPC or to design VPC, we have to select a particular region. Okay, let's name this region to a specific region. Let us make it US East 1. US East 1 is Northern Virginia. So the concept here is when we will create in the configure VPC, we are going to create in the configure VPC in US East 1. All right. Then let us have what we call it in this region. Let us what we call it design our VPC, or let us design VPC here. This is our VPC. VPC doesn't span multiple region, so it can span multiple availability zone. So we have this VPC. On this VPC, we will have what we call it. By the way, as I tried to explain on the previous lecture, VPC is a service that lets you launch AWS resource in a logically isolated virtual network that you define. That means your data center on the cloud, right? VPC stands for Virtual Private Cloud. So this VPC can be further categorized into availability. So it can span to not categorized actually, it can span multiple availability zone. So let us take availability zone 1 here. It can have multiple availability zone, and then let us stretch this here to here, and then let us name this one US East 1A, and then copy. Let us copy it, put it to another availability zone here, and rename it to B, US East 1B. So on our VPC, we have to availability zone. What is availability zone? Availability zone is one or more district data center with redundant power, networking, and connectivity in AWS region. We use multi-AV, multi-availability zone for high availability and the redundancy purpose. In case any system we have in one availability zone, we are safe because the exact copy if we configure the exact copy here, we are safe. It is highly available, so the damage that happened in one availability zone can't affect the resource we have in another availability zone. For instance, we have a database. We provisioned database in multi-AV deployment. So if the primary database is damaged in availability one, over here, we are safe because our configuration of the RDS has been done in multi-AV, right? So the standby database will automatically assume the primary role over here, so that if the primary database on one availability is damaged, we are safe because our data will start from availability in other availability zone. That is the concept and the benefit of availability zone. So an availability zone, we can configure subnets. For instance, the subnet we wanted to configure is in order to have in order to further divide the what we call it the availability zone in different networking range. All right, what kinds of we have is public and the private, actually. Public subnets and the private subnets. Subnet is part of the network. In other words, part of the entire availability zone. It is a kind of dividing availability zone into multiple network groups. There are private and the public. Here is the public we have here. We have here, stretch here. Oh, okay, bring it here and put it here. This is our public subnet. Okay. Then, all right. Also, we have a private subnet. By the way, in this publicly accessible resource need to be provisioned in this the private here. In the private, sometimes we need to have privacy. We need privacy, right? So, for instance, your database server. Consider database server. Your database server, it is not recommended to access from the internet. It must be private, because in order to keep your database into the private part of your VPC, you need to launch in private subnet. So what if you wanted to access what if the data in the private subnet wanted to access internet or from the at that time it needs to have what we call it NAT network access translate. That is the network concept, actually. So we need to have NAT at that time. All right, let us have the same thing on availability zone B. Public and the private. We have these two things over here. So, at this time, if the public subnet We said public subnet is accessible from internet, right? For the public subnet to access the internet, we need to have internet gateway. All right. So what if internal routing is needed? The internal routing has been done by a local VPC CIDR block. So so that it can be accessed locally by VPC internal routing. So if you want to control the traffic, to control the traffic within the VPC, you have multiple security solution like security group is one thing. The other thing is NACL, Network Access Control List. Network Access Control List is considered as a firewall. It is considered as defense in depth. So you need to have these things. All right. Once you have this thing, you may need what we call it. As I said, we need to attach this to the internet gateway. Okay, let us attach it. This is internet. Okay, gateway. Once we have done with that, let us launch EC2 instance. Launch EC2 instance. All right. Here, EC2 instances virtual server. So let us start launching it from private subnet. By the way, it is highly recommended to launch EC2 instance or your virtual server in private for database server. For database server, that better to launch it in private subnet, because if your database server is accessible from the internet, it will be damage for your company. In order to avoid such risk, keep it or launch it in the private subnet so that it can be accessible only from the local network. Okay, all right. Now we have a EC2 instance into private subnet, and now let us launch it on in the public, what we call it, in the public subnet, and then in a different availability zone. Okay, now consider this one as private database server. Consider this one your database server that is launched in private subnet, and consider this one web application server in the public subnet, because web application server can be accessible from internet, can be accessible publicly. To indicate that, if this is primary, for instance, this is what we call it standby, so that in case of any problem happened on the on this primary database, it is highly available. The standby database will take the primary role in order to serve you. All right, then. The next step, in order to indicate that these EC2 instances are automatically scaling, let us use EC2 auto scaling. Let us use EC2 auto scaling to indicate that it is automatically auto scalable. That means auto scaling group depends on CloudWatch. Depends on CloudWatch in order to what we call it on metric, on CloudWatch metric actually, depends on CloudWatch metric in order to launch EC2 instances. So assume that you are configured your auto scaling group in your VPC. All right. In order to indicate that you are distributing the load among these servers, you need to have a load balancer. Let us take elastic load balancing here. This elastic load balancing over here to indicate that you are balancing load across multiple availability zone, across multiple target. What is the function of load balancer or elastic load balancing is to distribute traffic across multiple targets. So for this, for instance, you have public and private or load balancer, local and public elastic load balancing. So you can have also another elastic load balancing here in order to locally distribute the traffic within the private subnet targets. By the way, there are three types of elastic load balancing. Number one, application load balancing. Number two, network load balancing. Network load balancer. Number three, classic load balancer. You can use any of this load balancer, depends on your solution actually. All right. So once we have done this one, let us indicate the traffic flow. All right, to indicate the traffic flow, let us come here and get this thing, this arrow. That indicate like this, and also for the traffic flow, this one, so that the elastic load balancer is distributing the traffic. To get more video, don't forget to share it, to like it, and to subscribe it. Thank you.